Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Mount Tammany Ridge channel. I'm down here in the wood yard extension or expansion, I suppose you could call it. I got the skid steer here behind me, and we have a post pounder on the front of it. Now, this piece of equipment here I purchased. This is not a sponsored video, so you guys might know from previous videos, if you've been following along for a while, we've been doing a lot of fence replacement and also relocation projects here on the farm. So originally, we were using the bucket with a couple massive boulders in it, obviously for weight on top of the strength and the weight of the machine. We just needed that little extra weight to be able to push these posts down into the ground. Thankfully, the type of soil that we have allows us to do that in most cases. There are some parts of the property that don't really do well with that for certain geographical reasons that are kind of manipulated by previous property owners. So, yeah, so, ideally, when you guys are out there doing fence projects and stuff like that, there's times when you feel like you have to kind of cowboy up and do things in a way that is not really ideal, borderline dangerous, and in some cases very dangerous. But we all kind of just try to do what we can with what we have, whether it be time restraints, money restraints, things like that. So I had to make a decision whether I was going to continue to save up for a log splitter, to increase production in the wood yard, or I was going to do something like this and purchase, one of these post pounders. Now, seeing my father underneath that bucket, every single post that we put in, wasn't easy for me to do. He's got major vision problems and things like that, and he's got some nerve damage in his one arm, so his motor skills are present sometimes, and sometimes they're not. So he did not feel comfortable with me being under the bucket and him operating the machine. So he just kind of did what a lot of dads do, and they just kind of take the dangerous end of the whole thing, and they just kind of run with it and hope for the best. So that's kind of what we had to do. The weather is everything when you're doing this stuff, and we had a good weather forecast coming up, and we had the materials, and we had the help and the manpower in conjunction, obviously, with the skid steer. Unfortunately, we didn't have the post pounder at the time. So just so any of you viewers out there, that see some of the videos that I do, yes, there are some things that we have to do here to keep things going, and we really don't care to do them the way we do them sometimes. But it's just kind of the way it is in real life. You just got to get it done, and got to make a lot of hard decisions. So but enough about that part. So this piece of equipment here, it's not a, how can I say, an American made product. It's not a name brand that we're all familiar with. I guess you could call it, it's a China knockoff, I guess you could call it. But so it's the model is a 680, and I think it's called AGROTK or AGROTK, something like that. And it's supposed to drive posts up to 6 inches in diameter, or square for the I guess you could do square. We're going to find out. There's no doubt we're going to find out. So today all I'm doing really with this thing is getting it hooked up to the machine, and I'm going to be measuring the hoses, because the hoses that came with it were short. So the gentleman that I had bought it from, it's brand new, the gentleman that I bought it from figured he was going to do me a favor, and he gave me longer hoses. Well, those longer hoses are not long enough. I'm confident by, just kind of laying them loosely up on the boom where the auxiliary ports are, is kind of showing uh, me that I'm not going to be able to use my dump function very far once I get this post pounder up in the air. We're going to have to adjust the angle, tilt it forward to get the cup on the bottom of the hammer to nestle properly and plumb, I guess you could call it, on the top of the post. So I'm either going to have to do something hokey, put extensions on them, or I might just have to, go to Napa and just kind of soak it up, I suppose, and maybe get whole new hoses made, maybe with some 90-degree fittings down where it couples to the implement, and then, obviously extend it up properly. So I'm going to be taking some measurements here. Whether I'm doing it right or not, I don't know. I mean, I imagine measurements are measurements. If you can use a tape measure in the most basic sense, should be able to pull this off. So yeah, so I'm going to bring you in a little bit closer to the implement, let you get a little bit of a closer look at it, and we'll talk about it a little bit more. All right, so here it is. It's a 680. I believe that's AGROTK, or maybe, like I said, AGROTK, something, I don't know. So it's got the sales, where I bought it from. Either that or that's the manufacturer. Yeah, it looks like that's probably the manufacturer for AGROTK or whatever. So, I mean, it looks like it's, pretty robust. I mean, things like this, I mean, it's it is what it is. Hopefully I get slightly more than I paid for it out of it. So it couples up to the skid steer quite well. It doesn't seem overly sloppy. All the attachment points, down here, they're not out of alignment. I don't have to cut holes or anything like that, or maybe even cut them bigger so that the pins on the bottom, the claws, can actually go into them properly. I've seen people that have bought these knockoff implements from overseas, and they've had to do all kinds of crazy things just to get them to couple up to their machine, let alone function properly. So yeah, here's the hoses that they supplied me with. Like I said, the guy was nice enough to at least attempt to get hoses that were long enough. Now, I mean, when you look at it, it looks like they'd actually do fine, right? So this hose here, see if I can, I mean, it's got slack. I just don't believe it's going to have enough slack. But we're gonna find out. I'm gonna have you guys set up on the tripod and kind of get a side view of this while I'm tinkering around with it. But yeah, so far so good. Seems to couple up well, and I can also get out, right? So that was one of the first things I started to get worried about, was above these, these cylinders where these mounting hole bolts go through to the boom. The little notches here in the door, I was concerned this was going to set too high and I wasn't going to be able to get out with the implement attached. So it's got the tripod type of setup there. You got the feet, and it's sitting pretty square, or in this case, well, I guess you could call it square, even though it's like a triangulated thing. But anywho, so yeah, let's get the machine fired up. We're going to see, like what kind of slack we're working with here. right, everybody, so the other day we were down here actually trying to record this segment, and we had some phone issues with my phone as far as storage room. We tried to rely on Teresa's phone, but by the time it all got transferred over to my phone to do all the editing, it got all grainy, so I had to trash it. But anyway, so up here you can see we have the thing lifted up, and it's not high enough to do the range that I would like it to be able to do without having to worry about ripping these hoses out. Now, from that side of the hose where it attaches to the chamber up to the auxiliary ports on the machine is 62 inches from one side of the fitting to the other. What I did today was, when I came home from work, I swung by Napa. I had to make me up some new hoses altogether. We had determined that adding on a foot or something like that, by the time you get all the extra adapters and things like that to make the connection, you're really only left with, 5 or 6 inches of actual flexibility. And that was just a little bit too rigid and just caused more failure points. So we just made new hoses. So yeah, I mean, that's about what I'm working with here. You can see it's got very little bow in the line. And I also swapped out the ends. Well, I shouldn't say I swapped out the ends. We tried to go with 90s that were direct fit to the hose, but I wound up using adapters for that, which actually works out better because I got an 80-inch long hose this time. So that should be more than enough to get that range that I need. And the 90 degrees, them being fittings rather than fixed directly to the hose, it gives me the option of, if the 90 degrees ain't working out, then I can just go straight in, from the end of the hose. So we're going to actually, one thing I wanted to show you is, with this range here, the distance I have from the ground up into the cup. So this cup's about 3/4 of an inch deep. So up into the cup, you're looking at 6 feet 7 inches, right? So really not all that great. We need to be able to get it up at least to the top of an 8-inch post. So let's get this thing down on the ground. I'll swap these hoses out and we'll put it back up and see how much better it is.
This stuff is super slick. Betcha. That's the engine and anything.
All right, so we've got our hoses hooked up to the machine now, and it looks to me like this is going to work out nice. Over time, when I have a free moment, I'm probably going to be, putting zip ties on here to make sure this all kind of stays together. I would have liked to have had that protective spring type thing around these hoses, but I imagine they would have offered it if they had it at the Napa. Probably something they could have ordered in, but no big deal. All my other implements don't have that, so it should be fine. So from what I understand, dry firing one of these pieces of equipment without putting a load on it is probably not good for it. So I'm going to run it. I'm going to actuate this thing. We're probably going to take one of our junk posts over there, and I'll have Teresa, set it on the ground for me. I'll put the cup on it, have her back away, and we'll see how this thing does. Before I even think about dry firing it, though, I'm going to get the grease gun over there, and I'm going to pump a few things of grease in there, and we'll see. It's supposed to come out the bottom. You got the shaft for the cup. And that grease is supposed to come out of there, but I have to have down pressure on the cup according to the manual. So I'm going to fire up the machine. I'm going to put a little bit more down pressure on this cup here. I'm going to pump a few pumps of grease in there, see how that goes, and then we're going to see what happens. Hope for the best. grease in there. I don't know how much. Kind of sounding like my tube of grease is getting dangerously low. Do a little test with this thing here. I'm using a curvy Frito-Lay resembling post here. We'll see. It might shatter. It might go in nice and easy, or nothing might happen at all. We'll have to see.
Why did all that liquid come out?
Well, find out. I guess it's still a little bit loose. All right. Thought I got them all.
Just from the one.
Oh, yeah, wow. Man, I swear I cut that. Let's use this one. Okay, we'll see how this goes. All right, take two. Now I'm going to want to track forward to get closer to the camera, so.
It's on still.
Alright, so we've got a leak here still. Is it still leaking there?
No,
No?
no. The
So
water
it's
that
just-
you
it's
saw
just
coming,
here then.
the water that you saw coming down is coming from that lip.
Oh, from there.
Yeah, there was water in there.
I mean, I do see some here.
I, be honest with you, I wasn't paying attention to that. I was paying attention
Yeah.
more to the what you were doing.
Yeah, so
That's in there.
I mean, it's not great, largely because, well, one, first time I've ever used one. Two, the ground is really hard right now,
And
and the fact that,
we don't have
I mean, this thing's curved. It literally is a banana. So so far, I mean, it's definitely,
that. It's in there.
this ground is really, really dry right now. Earlier when I put these fence posts in along here and all down through there, it was, you know, it was springtime. So, you know, the ground was still pretty damp, and my machine was able to, you know, with it, you know, help of some big boulders in the bucket, I was able to push them in the ground quite easily. But right now, I mean, the ground is easily, it's got to be petrified 12 inches down.
Plus, weren't the other post pointed?
Well, yeah, this is, you know, not sharpened at all. The other posts were. Not to mention, we also put a pilot hole in the ground by using a spud bar, pushing the spud bar down into the ground with the bucket first to kind of give ourselves like a pre-drilled hole, per se, and you know, pull it back out with the tip of the bucket. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty cool. I mean, you get some nice straight posts and a little bit of practice. That's a heck of a lot better than having to have somebody stand under the bucket and kind of risk it all,
Is that
so to speak.
still leaking?
The well, yeah. So
I see a drip.
up here, my auxiliary receptacles. I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but you know, they're leaking. They definitely are. I'll have to find out if it's leaking from the actual flat face coupler side or the threaded side of the coupler. So for now, this is going to conclude the video, and we'll get back to you. We're going to be doing some reviews on this. We're going to try a 6x6. We're going to try obviously 4x4s. We're going to be doing several different things. So yeah, we'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks a lot for hanging out with us here in the Mount Tammany Ridge channel. If you could, hit that like button, subscribe, share with your friends.